formula that was used to before, and I know how much work has been put into it. However, I think it has limitation, Mr. Speaker, because it's basically based on three things: population size, land size, and poverty index. Now, looking at poverty index is actually looking at the reverse. It would have been better to look at human development index, because that is what is telling you what people actually need. Poverty index is to a large extent telling you how much people are suffering without telling you very much what they need to do. And therefore, if we used human development index, which then will tell you how people are doing in terms of health, how people are doing in terms of education, how people are doing in terms of standard of living. For example, in health, you will use such figures as life expectancy as birth. And if you go into that, then you find out why is it that people are living shorter. In this country, if you go to, you find that in Nyanza, probably the life expectancy is much shorter than it is in the central parts of the country. And you ask why. Then you think of years of school. By the age of 25, how long have people been in school and what have they actually achieved? And then you look at per capita income. I think those will give you a much more robust indicator or index. And then you can actually use really practical things, like you will use distance to health centers. How far do people walk in a given county to the nearest health center? The amount of tarmac roads in kilometers per individual. Those are actually much more direct way of looking at, and they give you, if you look at tarmac roads, then you can actually say how much more do we need of tarmac roads. If you look at the distance to health facilities, you then actually can come out and say these are the number of health facilities we need in this area, so these people will need this. So I think as much as they're using poverty index, I would say they should work next time with the human development index and then look at the components of the human development index that will give you direct input that you need to actually use to estimate the amount of income, the amount of money that should be given the county. But, Mr. Speaker, much more important is how the money is used. Every time we stand here, Mr. Speaker, we talk of corruption in the counties, corruption in the counties. True, I've looked at that. To me, what has changed a lot since devolution is actually the number of very expensive houses that you see in the countryside. And when you ask most of them, you find these people are actually working in counties. And I say, well, at least something has happened. So we talk of that corruption, but there's one thing we don't look at. What about the systems? The systems do help us to actually reduce corruption. We cannot eliminate them, but we reduce corruption. Financial systems. It is just last week we were actually talking of the financial systems that we use in the county. We have the bigger Public Finance Act, but how well are people trained on this? If you look at procurement systems, how well are people trained at the county level in this? If you look at human resource. Now, I'll give an example of health sector which I'm familiar with. I think of devolved functions, the function that has the largest number of human resource at the county level is health. And it is so complex, and that's why we have these issues. Now, if you look at training, we have a school of government, and there's only one in the country. One would have expected that at this time, we should actually have several schools of government in various parts because of devolution, so that these officers actually, officers at the county level, get the appropriate training. We compare county governments with the national government. The national government has been in existence for over 100 years. So the experience that has been gathered and the number of people who have that experience in national government is huge. County governments have just been here for about 10 years. However much we expect them to gather experience, we need a lot more intensive training for these counties. Another thing that is coming very clear, like in this, they are figuring out the 12 counties because they are small. The size of counties also matter, Mr. Speaker, because personally I believe that the counties we have are too small. And the evidence is that the counties themselves are now coming with regional blocks. They have realized that if we need to be more prospective, be more productive, we need to be larger. They are telling us, so we ask in Naivasha, how did we get to this number 47? Well, I know it may be now very difficult to go back and say, can we go back to the 8 that were originally proposed? So these are issues that actually we must keep looking at. The other issue is that the raising of own revenue. I think we should put an index in this distribution formula that indicates how much own revenue has a county raised. And then we actually reward those who are doing well on raising their own funds. Probably should get more so that there's an incentive. Otherwise, what happens, we don't work on the raising our own revenue. We want to depend to a large extent what comes from this formula. So, Mr. Speaker, I've said before and I say now, we had a committee for the implementation of the Constitution, which was to a large extent legal, which then actually died, which was term was over. Then we came with the Transition Authority, then we now intergovernmental. This House actually has a committee on implementation of the Constitution. And I think we should regularly be looking at what we need to do. How are the structures? How are the performances? If every time we are having MCAs working very hard to impeach governors, what are the factors behind it? So if the governors are not, if the counties are not performing, what are the factors that are there? And then we can then review the whole issue of county governance with these facts that we have in mind. So I think this is a fairly scientific and very difficult formula they are working on, but it can give a basis for regular review of how devolution is working. With that, Mr. Speaker, I support.
Thank you. The Honorable Dr. Makali Mulu, MP for Kitui Central.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for this opportunity. Honorable Speaker, I want to join my colleagues in commenting on this fourth generation formula. And as I do that, I want from the word go to say that if I was able to move the numbers, I would have opposed this formula. But now that we'll not be able to move the numbers, let's go on record on a number of issues. Honorable Speaker, sharing of public resources has never been an easy assignment. In some countries, it actually triggers war. In some countries, it causes serious conflicts because resources generally is what determines how areas